I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. It's weird, no, surreal, to even be writing about this now. But here I am, telling you the whole truth, because what's the point in hiding anymore? It started with a pretty normal day. You know how it is. Everything feels fine, nothing out of the ordinary. I was at work, trying to get through a long meeting, when I got a message from a colleague. His name's Jakey. He's been working in the same office for a couple of years now. We get along well, always joke around, nothing too serious. So, the message said, "I'll be leaving a bit late today. Can I give you a ride home?" Now, that wasn't out of the blue. We've carpooled before, especially when we have similar schedules. We live close to each other, so it's kind of convenient. Plus, it wasn't like I was asking for special treatment or anything. It was just efficient. But, and I guess this is where I didn't fully think things through, I didn't really check with my husband, Rick, about it. I just kind of assumed it would be no big deal. You see, Rick is a great guy, but he's got this thing where he gets a bit sensitive about these kinds of situations. I guess I didn't think he'd react the way he did. When I got home that evening, I could immediately tell something was off. Rick didn't greet me at the door like usual. I was late, about 20 minutes, and I expected a, "Hey, how was your day?" Or even a, "You're late." But instead, I found him sitting on the couch, arms crossed, looking pissed off. That's when I knew. "Why didn't you tell me you were getting a ride home with Jakey?" He asked, his voice cool but firm. I was caught off guard. I honestly didn't think it would be a big deal, but Rick doesn't hide his feelings well, so I could see the tension in his jaw. "I didn't think it mattered," I said. It was true. It wasn't like I was doing anything wrong, right? It was just a ride home. But I also knew the real reason I hadn't said anything was because I didn't want to deal with the conversation that would come with it. Rick had a tendency to overthink things, and the last thing I wanted was for him to feel like I was hiding something. Rick raised an eyebrow. "It's not just about the ride, though, is it?" I felt my stomach drop a little. My heart started racing. I wasn't sure what he was getting at, but I knew it wasn't good. "Rick, it's just a ride. We've done this before." I tried to explain, but I could see in his eyes that it wasn't about the ride anymore. He was angry. More than angry. There was something deeper there. "I don't like it when you do things like this without telling me first," he said quietly, his voice low. "You're my wife, and I don't want to feel like I'm being left out of your decisions. If you need something, you should come to me first." I felt guilty, but at the same time, I couldn't help but feel frustrated. Wasn't I allowed to make my own choices? Why did it feel like every little thing had to be approved by him? "Rick, I didn't think it would be an issue," I said, trying to keep calm. "It's just a ride. Nothing happened." I was lying, but only partially. Nothing had happened yet, but I felt this weird, uneasy feeling creep into my chest. The thing is, Jake had always been a little flirty with me, even though I never took it seriously. He'd make comments about how pretty I looked or joke about how I was the best part of his day. I laughed it off because it never seemed like anything more than just a harmless flirtation. But I guess it was becoming more than that, and I hadn't fully realized it until that moment with Rick. I sat down on the couch beside Rick, trying to explain, but honestly, I was starting to feel overwhelmed. He wasn't angry in a way that made me feel safe. It was like he was holding something back, like there was more to his anger than just the ride home. "You don't get it," Rick said after a long pause. "You're making me feel like you don't respect me, like I'm not enough for you." I wanted to argue, to say that he was overreacting, but I couldn't. His words stung, and somewhere deep down, I knew I was kind of guilty. The truth was, I had been feeling something I couldn't quite put into words for a while now. It wasn't that I didn't love Rick. I did. But there was a part of me that felt like something was missing. I wasn't sure if it was excitement, adventure, or just something different, but I'd been craving it for a while. And then there was Jake. He was funny, confident, and he made me feel seen, in a way that Rick didn't always. Not that it was Rick's fault. It's just that after years of being together, things had gotten comfortable, maybe too comfortable. But I hadn't done anything wrong yet. Rick stood up and started pacing, his hands running through his hair. "I just don't get why you wouldn't tell me." Why hide it? I trusted you. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I didn't mean to hide anything. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But it clearly was. And as Rick got angrier, I couldn't help but wonder how much of this was just about a ride home, and how much of it was about something deeper. The way he looked at me, I could tell that he was worried. But was he worried about Jakey? Or was it me? I felt this pit in my stomach, something that I hadn't felt in a long time. Was this just about the ride? Or was there something else? As the night went on, things only got worse. The tension between Rick and me wasn't something I could shake off. It wasn't just the ride anymore. That was obvious. It was like a storm had started brewing between us, and we were both caught in it, unable to do anything but stand there and let it get worse. Rick didn't say much more that night. He was too upset, too wrapped up in his own feelings. And I didn't know what to say. How could I explain it? I wasn't even sure what was going on in my own head. Later that evening, we went to bed in silence. The usual routine of me cuddling up next to him, falling asleep with his arm around me. It wasn't there. Instead, I turned to my side of the bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling more alone than I'd felt in a long time. The next few days were awkward. Not just with Rick, but at work, too. Jake would send me the occasional message. How was your day? Need a ride home again. And every time, my stomach would flip. I knew Rick was watching, and part of me was relieved he didn't have access to my phone. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was playing with fire. I didn't want to admit it, but part of me liked the attention Jake was giving me. He wasn't just being friendly. He was complimenting me in ways Rick hadn't for months, maybe even longer. It wasn't even about the compliments, though. It was about the way Jake looked at me, like I was something to be admired. I didn't feel that from Rick anymore, not in the same way. It was like everything had become routine between us, and in a strange way, Jake was the spark that lit something inside me I hadn't realized had been dimming for so long. One afternoon, a few days after that fight, I was at work, just finishing up some reports, when Jake messaged me again. Hey, do you want to grab coffee after work? I know this place downtown, it's pretty chill. It wasn't even a big deal, but something about it felt different. We'd hung out before, but this felt personal. I hesitated. My heart started pounding, and I felt guilty, but I also felt this pull I couldn't explain. It wasn't just that I wanted to spend time with him. It was that I needed something. I needed to feel like I mattered to someone, like I wasn't just a wife, a daughter, or a co-worker. I needed to feel like me again. I told myself it was harmless. I'd go for coffee, we'd chat, and that would be it. I could control myself. I could stay in my lane. But deep down, I knew I was crossing a line. I knew it, but I kept telling myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I told Rick I was working late that evening. He didn't say much, just nodded. But I could tell he wasn't happy about it. It felt like every move I made was scrutinized. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep this up. That evening, when I met Jake, everything felt different. He was waiting outside the cafe, and when I walked up, he greeted me with that familiar smile. The kind of smile that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. I was glad to see him, but I tried to push away the guilt that was already gnawing at me. The cafe was quiet, just the sound of coffee machines and soft chatter in the background. We ordered our drinks, and we found a corner table. Jake was talking about something, but I wasn't really listening. I was too busy noticing the way he looked at me, the way his eyes lingered a little too long, the way his hand brushed mine when he reached for his cup. And then, when the conversation started to shift, I realized we were flirting. I wasn't sure when it happened, but the light teasing, the playful banter, the way his touch felt different. It was like we were both suddenly aware of the chemistry between us. Do you ever think about more than just work? Jake asked casually, his voice low. His gaze held mine, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I swallowed hard, trying to push down the part of me that was really interested in what he was saying. I felt my heart race. Was this it? Was this the moment? I don't know, I said, my voice a little shaky. I'm married, Jake. His expression didn't change, but he leaned a little closer. Yeah, I know. I respect that. But, sometimes you just wonder, right? What if things were different? It was like a switch had been flipped. I didn't want to admit it, but part of me was already thinking about what it would be like to kiss him, to just let go of all the responsibility, all the expectations, and just feel something. Before I could say anything, he reached across the table and took my hand. I froze. I wanted to pull away, but I didn't. Instead, I let him hold it. Let his fingers linger against mine. It felt exciting, like I was doing something forbidden. And maybe that was the thrill of it. Maybe that's what had been missing in my life. A little excitement, a little chaos. But I could still hear Rick's voice in my head. I could still feel his disappointment, his concern, his hurt. And yet, here I was, holding Jake's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. And I know this is probably wrong, Jake said quietly, but I can't help how I feel, and I think you feel the same way. My heart was beating so fast, I could barely think straight. I looked down at our hands, trying to process everything. Could I do this? Could I risk everything for a moment of excitement? Was this the answer I'd been looking for? I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything at all. I just let the silence hang between us, wondering if I'd just made a decision that would change my life forever. It's hard to describe what happened next. The moment was electric, but in a way that felt suffocating, like I was standing on the edge of something dangerous, but I couldn't step back. I just kept going. Jake didn't let go of my hand. He kept looking at me with that intense, almost predatory gaze, and I couldn't look away. I felt a weird mixture of guilt and excitement, both of them fighting for control over me. I wasn't thinking clearly. I should have stopped it right then and there. I should have pulled my hand away and told him I couldn't do this. But instead, I felt like I was being pulled into something I couldn't get out of. And part of me didn't want to. I know what I said before. Jake continued, his voice low and almost hushed. But I can't keep pretending I don't want more from you, Lisa. I've wanted this for a long time. I was frozen, caught between two worlds. The one where I was still Rick's wife, the one where I'd promised to be loyal, and the one where Jake was sitting across from me, holding my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. I started to speak, but the words felt wrong. They felt empty. It wasn't that I didn't love Rick. It wasn't that I didn't care about him. But at that moment, the only thing I could think about was Jake's hand, warm and confident around mine. The fact that he was paying attention to me in a way Rick hadn't in months. I've been thinking about you a lot. Lisa, Jake said, his voice more earnest now, a hint of desperation creeping in. You're not just some co-worker to me. I can't keep pretending I don't want more. And there it was. The truth. He wanted more. And even though every rational part of me was screaming at me to pull away, to go home and fix things with Rick, a part of me, a small, dark part of me, was leaning into it. I could feel it deep inside me, like a current pulling me towards something I couldn't control. I pulled my hand away, almost instinctively, but it wasn't enough. I could still feel the warmth of his touch lingering. My heart was pounding, my breath shallow. I tried to stand up, but my body felt paralyzed. I married Jake. I said, the words coming out in a hoarse whisper, as if saying them aloud could somehow erase what had just passed between us. I can't. But he wasn't listening. He leaned closer, just a little, and his voice dropped lower, almost like a secret between us. I don't care about that, he murmured. I care about you. You're so much more than just someone's wife. You're Lisa. And I can't stop thinking about you. About us. I should have stood up. I should have left. But I didn't. Instead, I felt myself leaning toward him, just an inch at first, and then closer. I could feel the heat between us, the tension so thick that it almost felt like it was suffocating me. And then, just like that, the distance between us disappeared. He kissed me. It was soft at first, hesitant, like he was waiting for me to pull away. But I didn't. I kissed him back. It wasn't like the kisses I'd shared with Rick over the years, the soft, tender pecks that had become routine. This one felt like a secret, a forbidden one, like we were two people doing something we both knew we shouldn't. But in that moment, it felt right. It felt like something I hadn't felt in forever, desired, wanted, even a little dangerous. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me closer, and I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. I wanted to feel this, whatever it was, whatever had been missing for so long. the excitement, the desire, the thrill. And that was the moment I knew. I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. That kiss wasn't just a kiss. It was the start of something much bigger, and in the pit of my stomach, I could feel the weight of what I had done, even as I couldn't bring myself to stop. I pulled away slowly, my heart hammering in my chest. I can't do this," I whispered, my voice shaky. Jake didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me, his eyes full of something I couldn't quite place. But I could see the frustration, the need. He wanted me, and for a moment, I wanted him too. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, Lisa," he said, his voice softer now. "But I think you feel it too. I can see it in your eyes." I didn't answer. I just stood up and grabbed my coat, suddenly needing to escape. I felt like I was suffocating in the cafe in that moment. I had to get out of there. "I have to go," I said quickly, and without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out of the cafe. My heart was racing, and my mind was a mess. What had I just done? I drove home in a daze. I couldn't stop thinking about Jake's lips, his hands, the way I felt when he kissed me. But there was something else too, something I couldn't ignore. The guilt, the shame, the realization that I had just betrayed Rick. That kiss was a line I couldn't erase. When I got home, Rick was already in bed. I stood at the door for a long time, just watching him sleep. For a moment, I felt like I was going to break into pieces. I had betrayed him in the worst way, and I didn't know how to face him. I didn't know how to tell him that I'd crossed a line with someone else, someone who made me feel seen in a way Rick hadn't in so long. I crawled into bed beside Rick, but I couldn't bring myself to touch him. I kept my distance, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had done. I knew the truth now, even if I didn't want to admit it. I had made a choice, and it was one that I couldn't take back. The next few days were a blur. The weight of what I had done didn't lift. It stayed with me like a shadow, following me wherever I went. I went through the motions of daily life, work, home, routines, but everything felt like it was happening through a fog. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living a lie, and I couldn't escape the consequences of my actions. The worst part, I knew I was being unfair to Rick. He was still clueless, still trusting me, still believing that everything between us was fine. I didn't even know how to look at him anymore. Every time he smiled at me, kissed me good morning, or asked how my day was, I felt like an imposter. He didn't know the truth, and I was hiding it from him. I couldn't even look him in the eyes when I woke up beside him, knowing what I had done. The shame would settle in my chest every morning like a stone. I would lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the guilt gnawing at me, but I didn't know how to tell him. How could I? What was I supposed to say? I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, but I knew that something had to give. The tension in the house was palpable. I could feel it in the way Rick started acting around me, too. He was quieter, less affectionate, and I could tell he was still upset about the whole ride situation, even though I had apologized 100 times. But it wasn't just about that. There was something deeper between us now, a divide I wasn't sure we could bridge. And then, one evening, it happened. Rick asked me flat out if something was going on. We were sitting on the couch, watching TV, when he turned to me with a serious look on his face. It felt like a punch to the stomach. "Lisa," he said quietly, his voice tight, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." I froze. My mind raced. I wanted to deny everything. I wanted to tell him everything was fine, that I was just stressed out, that he was overthinking things. But I couldn't do that. Not anymore. "Are you seeing someone else?" he asked, his voice low, barely a whisper. The question hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt the blood drain from my face. How did he know? I wanted to deny it, to say no, but the guilt made it impossible. He could probably see it in my eyes, hear it in my voice. My heart was pounding in my chest, and for a moment, I felt like I was suffocating. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The words were stuck, lodged in my throat. How could I explain what I had done? How could I put the chaos of my feelings into words? I didn't even understand them myself. Rick's eyes were searching mine, waiting for an answer. "Lisa, I don't know what's going on with you, but I feel it. I know something's different. I know you're not being honest with me, and it's killing me." My mind was spinning. I felt like I was drowning in guilt, in shame. But I couldn't lie anymore. I couldn't keep pretending like nothing was wrong. Yes, I whispered, barely able to get the word out. I've been seeing someone else. The silence that followed was deafening. Rick just stared at me, his face pale, his eyes wide with shock. It felt like time stood still, and I could hear every beat of my own heart thundering in my ears. I never meant to hurt you, Rick, I said, my voice breaking. I never wanted to betray you, but I did. And I'm so sorry. I don't even know what I was thinking. I don't know how to fix it. Rick looked like he had been punched in the gut. His face twisted in pain. But there was also something else there. Something I hadn't seen before. Maybe it was disappointment. Or maybe it was the realization that this was the end of everything he thought we had. For a long time, he didn't say anything. He just looked at me, his face unreadable. I felt like I was sinking deeper and deeper into the ground with each passing second. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse and strained. "How long?" he asked. I couldn't answer him right away. The truth was, I didn't know how long this had been going on. I hadn't planned it. It wasn't like I woke up one day and decided I wanted to cheat. It just happened. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had let it build up over time. Every little moment of dissatisfaction, every time I felt ignored or overlooked, it all added up. "I don't know," I whispered. "A few weeks." Rick closed his eyes, rubbing his forehead. He looked exhausted, like all the life had been drained from him in an instant. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he said quietly. "I don't even know if I want to." I felt my chest tighten. That was it, wasn't it? There was no going back. Once the truth came out, there was no erasing it. There was no undoing what I had done. "I'm sorry," I whispered again. The words felt hollow, but they were all I could say. I never meant for this to happen. Rick stood up and walked to the door, his steps heavy. "I need some space," he said, his voice barely audible. "I can't do this right now." He didn't look back as he left the room, and I heard the front door slam a few seconds later. I sat there for what felt like hours, the reality of the situation sinking in. I had ruined everything. I had broken the trust that we'd built over the years. And the worst part, I didn't know if I could ever get it back. I thought about Jake, about the thrill of being wanted, the excitement of doing something forbidden. But that feeling faded quickly in the face of the mess I had created. I had chosen to betray Rick, to throw away our life together for something that was fleeting, something that was never going to be real. But now I had to face the consequences. I had to face Rick. And I wasn't sure if he would ever look at me the same way again.